I want to circle back to Clayton. So he gets this contract and he's like, I'm not going to sign this. We're not going to date. I need to be professional. How did that escalate to taking him to court, trying to get a protective order? Can you speak to kind of how that escalated to what it became now and what it is today?
Yeah, so she goes to the family court to get a parenting plan, and it could have just lived there. It would have maybe come out if people were looking for it, but I think she understood that the real punishment was making this public. So there was really no reason for this to ever go public. The good thing is it'll end up vindicating Matt, Mike, Greg, and Clayton. But the bad thing is that a lot of people initially get the first story and not the full story, so they think Clayton is somehow at fault here. I have to remind people that he's the victim. But but yeah, I mean, she literally, it was just a family court issue that she then went publicly. She got the restraining order against him. It was granted by a judge. Absolutely crazy. A male judge granted it because the male judge did. She said Clayton must have shared this photo of me, which was like, she was like saying it was harassing. But the truth was, she had already given the internet access to her Dropbox account, which had all of these documents. She was fighting with people on Reddit from various usernames, trying to share her side of the story. So, I mean, trust me when I say you just don't mess with Reddit and you don't mess with Bachelor. There are hundreds of pages of evidence of statements she's made, claims that have been changed. But what's interesting is now she's claiming rape. In her documents, initially from the order of protection, she said there was never any physical violence. There was never any of those issues. So her story, keeps contradicting itself. Like, I know it's a tough question you're asking. Like, I mean, I try to give grace and wonder if maybe the mom is the one who raised this mess. It may be, Jane Doe has talked in the past about her medications being off. She's in neurological institutes for brain issues and to fall off the horse and has epilepsy and all these other issues, and her meds being off. And like, maybe they tried their best, or maybe I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to consider while you're receiving the metaphorical gunshots from them, attempting to, literally, I mean, relating the lawyer relates me to, what's the guy, the fake, the Sandy Hook denier, Jones, whatever his name is.
Alex
Yeah,
Jones.
Alex Jones. So the lawyer relates me to Alex Jones. Now, all my channel does, we obviously make a fair living. Podcast, YouTube, people can watch. It's like, no collateral damage there. But all we do is we raise money for single moms during Christmas. We raise money for teachers with their teachers' wish list. I have a small, less than 100,000 sub channel, and we do a lot of good. We have a really great audience my audience. The second Clayton looked like he was going to lose his case, they raised $10,000 on the spot to get him an attorney. They raised money for me when I was being sued. They're just good people. And her lawyer just says, oh, they're all part of some cult. And it's like really sad that they don't get to experience the generosity of these people. This lady who had her ultrasound stolen with the 8-year-old, I said, I don't know when your son's birthday is, but let us throw him like a great birthday party. Like, let us just do something good here, in all of this chaos. And there has been a lot of good that has come from it. There's been a lot of people that have come together. A lot of people are going to the trial. Her lawyer's trying to shame me for going to the trial. Like, oh, he's planning to go and rent an RV. No, I'm renting a van so that I can have air conditioning so that my cameras don't, overheat, because it's going to be about 100 degrees. And my wife knows, like, I don't want to leave my 3-week-old baby to go to trial, but she knows it's important to continue to tell this story to protect ourselves. There'll be survivors. There'll be people rooting on Clayton, Mike. There'll be a lot of people there, and there's a lot of interest there. And she's going to claim that they're harassing her, and she's going to claim she needs to show up, through Zoom because she has to protect herself. It's all part of her story. This is actually a story of people coming together for good. and she wants to frame it as everyone bullying her.
Congratulations to you and your wife, by the way. I know that when I listened to you on another podcast, you were talking about how you were on, I think, your baby moon, and you were trying not to look at your phone, but you also knew that she was threatening to sue you. So I respect that both you and your wife went through that for, protecting all of these victims while you were going through a really big moment in your life. But there's two things I want to ask you about. So in one of the podcasts, you had mentioned that there was actually a video, I think, of somebody rubbing their belly, or maybe it was the father in the hospital,
Yes.
and it showed a baby belly. And then after that, I want to talk about the mysterious Patreon member of yours.
Chase J. Jones, of course. So she sends a video, or again, early on, just more evidence, sends a video early on. Her dad's got Parkinson's, right? Seems to be a nice guy, a lot, like well respected. There are rumors that her father, what's it called? Her godfather's Gavin Newsom. There's all these stories of like how high up they are. I don't know what's true and what's not. But yeah, she sends a video, no audio. The audio's cut off. The initial source of the videos, it's been exported, so the metadata is all wonky. She sends a video. Now, when you look at this video on your phone, it's neck down. And in the video, it's her dad by his bedside in the hospital, smiling, rubbing her belly. And it's like, okay, it's a nice video. For whatever reason, when you look at it on a desktop, it's nose down. So my theory is this, that she edited it in a way where she thought it was safe that I can share this, and then found out that there's a version of it that's a little bit higher up. So the person in the video is her sister. That is without a doubt the truth. Now, I've reached out to some people in that family, not to harass, just to say, look, I haven't reached out to her sister because I understand how damaging this can be. She's got a 1-year-old. I understand how damaging it can be to even be a part of this conversation. So I reached out to somebody else and I said, look, are you guys really okay with Jane Doe stealing your ultrasound, stealing the prized moments of your, whatever? Are you guys okay with this? Like, we can put an end to this. I can do it anonymously. We can, whatever, just like you guys can be a part of this. Now, her sister is married and lives across the country. My guess is they don't want to fuck with their inheritance. That's my guess. There is some financial information coming out that they might have loans tied into the family that are not looking good right now. Again, money's always makes things interesting. But if I was say, her sister's mother-in-law, so her husband's mom, what do you think she thinks about all of this? They must know that their grandchild's ultrasound has been used in a fraudulent manner. What do they think of this? Now, while we don't have those people contacting me, we don't have anybody that has come forward at all, character-wise or whatnot, supporting her. Every once in a while in Bachelor Nation, there's a story where there's a villain, and I'll be like, oh, this person's terrible. We'll get 10 emails. No, she was cool. She was in high. Everybody talks. Everybody defends somebody. Even bad people are redeemable. Not one person's come forward for her. We've talked to former friends and people that are people that have worked with them, that have been in their homes. We've talked about all these people, and they're all like, whoa, this is crazy. Even to the point where her father posted a few things about me, which a lot of people believe was actually her. A lot of people don't believe her father has the faculties to post this. But those supporters of the father are now no longer like supporting. Like the initial posts were like, oh, my daughter's going through a lot. People were like, oh, this is crazy. That guy's crazy. Well, they did their research. So I've been reached out to by people that said, hey, man, we hated you. We thought you were this crazy internet guy that's telling. And I say, you know what? Hey, you didn't hate the real version of the story. You just hated the bully they wanted there to be. And I'm okay with people finding the truth. People know where to find me. My story and the story of this is all over the internet. I don't have any fears of being misrepresented. I do have fears of when I just moved to Tennessee, I've had to introduce myself to the sheriff's department so that I don't get swatted. I've had to take precautions because someone can pick up the phone and call Child Protective Services. They do this. It happens all the time. And I've got to let the system know, hey, I'm at risk of you hearing crazy things, and just be aware that, there's a greater story happening. On the journalist level, it's amazing what one person can do to try to silence this story. She's sent emails to so many different people telling them if they cover the story and agree with me, they will be sued for defamation. There's a lawyer today who decided to cover the story, and he was like, all right, I'm going to be objective. I never met this guy. And by the end of his 2-hour live stream, he's like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I don't need, I'm like selling water to a thirsty person in the desert. Just take it. Just, this is the truth. I don't need to hard sell you on it. I don't need to tell my case. I hate the saying, do your research, but literally it's all out there and people understand that. I mean, my audience got so mad knowing that we do good things. Like, we try to do the best with our platform. They got so mad when she started coming after my livelihood. And like I said today, just another example where gets a stream taken down for bullying. And, a lot of these cases, the social media and YouTube, they're meant to do well, but they're just algorithms. And, this was the first time she got one of my streams taken down, but it's really scary to think that you can do that. I like to think we're big enough now that we'll be able to refute any of her crazy claims. But here's an example. Clayton's attorney is a guy named Greg Woodnick. Really nice guy. He's been covering this case he's losing money. He's not making any money. He's got multiple lawyers on this case. It's kind of a, you could call it a passion project. Greg Gillespie had an attorney who dropped him named Greg Woodnick. Same guy. Jane always said, there's a reason why Greg's attorney dropped him, because he's not credible and this and that. He's a bad guy. Well, as it turns out, Jane Doe sent an email back in 2021 to the judge of her case with Greg Gillespie. And in that email claimed there was a rape conspiracy to rape her and kill her by Greg Woodnick and Greg Gillespie. So at this point, I'm sure Greg Woodnick, the lawyer, was like, I'm not making any money here. I'm sure his wife was like, get out of there. What are you doing? Get out of this craziness. So he ended up leaving the case. Thanks to us having the money to, raise funds and everything, we were able to hire him. And I believe Woodnick really wanted to write this because he understood that, at the time, maybe he didn't know for sure if Gillespie was the good guy, the good guy or the bad guy. But now, seeing all of the work the internet's done, he knows he's on the right side. He knows this is going to be a documentary. Not that has anything to do with it, but he knows this is the type of case you might be remembered for by sticking to the right side. So her attorney thinks we're all part of this crazy cult, that the judge only sides with us, that all of it, everything's weighted one direction. What they have to remember is, for 8 years, or however long it's been, about 8 years, she's received every green light and has not been questioned once, as she just marched down the path of getting these restraining orders and all this other stuff. So finally, there's a judge with hard evidence, sees she's lying about things, sees she's admitting to lying, even though she gives bogus reasons. And the judge is just letting, like they tried to get her HIPAA report back to 2018 or maybe back to 2020. And the judge said, let's go back to 2018. So the judge has actually expanded how much information comes in, I believe out of curiosity, to see all of the perjury that's being committed. Now, will an attorney want to press charges on her, an attorney general? Normally you'd say no, but we will raise hell to make sure these elected officials take note of what's going on here. And maybe they create a law called Clayton's Law, which is just a simple proof of pregnancy before a paternity claim. Maybe just something to stop this type of thing from happening.
Yeah, I think, aside from the fraud that she's committed, what a waste of resources, especially with family court. I mean, there are people that actually have real cases that need to be handled, and she's just manipulating the system to do her bidding for whatever that reason may be, which is really disturbing.
I did the math on how many man hours were probably spent on this one aspect of the case. She accused Greg Gillespie of being all these different Reddit accounts. If anyone disagreed with her, she was like, it must be so-and-so. Well, of course, the domestic violence unit detectives of Scottsdale had to write a report up. She was making these accusations to them. And I'm literally reading the report going, man, this feels like a guy spent 3 days on this. Now, imagine, and we've all got stories of friends or personal stories of DV or things like this. Imagine someone doesn't pick up the phone because they're dealing with this nonsense when there's real issues out there. And the police department, they all seem to have done a pretty good job in handling her. When the FBI called, I've got that audio. The FBI agent out of Virginia, wherever she was, says, it seems like she does this type of thing. It seems like she's kind of in the system. So they know these types of people exist. And her only argument at this point is, but if I believed I was pregnant, what can you do? And it's like, well, hopefully the judge can argue if enough fraud was committed, then we cannot take your word for it.
Can you speak more on that FBI call?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I've got a copy of it. It was just the FBI calling, I believe, the Scottsdale police saying, hey, we've got a case where someone's threatening to kill themselves. And it reaches whatever the unit's called, that is like, the internet crime watch or whatever. And they just basically said, you got to go do a wellness check because so she threatened to kill herself to me, probably to Clayton, probably to Greg, definitely to Mike. And she also called the FBI, and she also posted it on her Medium blog, which is, I think, the reason why, it's like, look, it's hard to go to bed when you open your email at midnight and you get an email from someone saying, I'm going to kill myself if you keep doing this. And I just have to, it sucks. It does. It sucks because like, I've never fought a person. I'm such a pacifist. If it was just her and there weren't these victims, I would have dropped this thing a while. Like I could care less. Right. But some guy's going to kill himself because, when you lose your credibility, when you lose your ability to make a livelihood, you can't get a background. None of these guys can get a background check. When you punish someone this hard, it's like some people, there is going to be someone who does something way, way worse. And it's almost like she's wanted to like get these guys so riled up to be the evil person she wants them to be. So then she can go, see, look, they're crazy. But in every case, like Greg Gillespie took copious notes. He has video of her showing up to his house. He's got all this crazy stuff. Clayton has crazy amounts of notes. Like they all kind of knew that something weird was going on. But when it was over for them, my belief is they were just happy it was over and didn't want to continue. So like she sued Greg Gillespie for emotional distress. It was a $40,000 one that turned into $150,000. So he cross sued her, and the judge dropped both of them because, like, she's like trying to claim she's got, rash because she's so stressed out. And it's like, well, maybe you are stressed out, but that's not my fault. It's not my fault. We exposed you lying. And if all she can say is that I'm just like passionately obsessed about it, it's like, well, no, I mean, I just show up every day and find a new lie to share. And eventually the documentary will come out. And then when she releases some, so she's in Chicken Soup for the Soul. One of the editions, one of her stories is. So when there's a Chicken Soup for the Soul, how Dave Neal was a bully, I'm just going to say, here's your 3-part HBO series telling you the truth. Don't take my word for it. You can watch it on Friday. And I'm not going to make a penny on the documentary. I'm not a producer. It is in like budget rounds. There are multiple people looking at it. With the sort of popularity of Baby Reindeer, I think there's a new conversation happening with, folks who weaponize the system. There has been, you do get to see how quickly people have tried to shame me as like a men's rights guy. But that immediately goes away because I've made most of my content on my channel defending women. It's just a matter that this is a woman who kind of has exploited a system meant to protect women. That's why my audience of all women is vehemently fighting for Clayton's rights and his truth and all of that.
Well, yeah, we have to believe victims regardless of whether the victim is a man or a woman. We have to believe victims. And I think what's so problematic, at least the way I see it, is as a female, oftentimes women who go through something have a hard time getting people to believe them. And then so you have somebody like Jane Doe coming in and giving this false narrative numerous times. It just adds to those stereotypes that maybe she's just hysterical and emotional. Maybe this doesn't have any validity. So she's essentially taking away that validity from people that are actually experiencing what she's saying that she experienced.
Super dangerous. She called the Broward County Police Department in Florida because a black content creator named Liz Neptune was covering her. I mean, this is the type of stuff. This is an affluent white woman who will do whatever she can to win, really. I mean, with me, she called the district attorney, and she still to this day will use these things against me. She called the district attorney from her own perspective, she said, here's all the crazy things he's doing, X, Y, and Z, her side of the story. And then the district, she gets the guy to respond and he says, yeah, this does seem odd and vexing or whatever. So now when she emails people like she did today to this other lawyer, she says, even the district attorney found this odd and vexing. So she takes these things, gets people who are just good natured trying to like side with who, oh yeah, this does sound crazy. It sounds like you're dealing with a real maniac. And then she'll use that to kind of further her point. Because she got a restraining order against me. So she really has no ammo, but she's got a hell of a like bark. And you wanted to talk about our Patreon, our favorite Patreon member. So I've got a Patreon account. It's private membership community, patreon.com/Dave Neal. There's a full-on chat room of everyone basically just doing good investigative work because they see the value in being on the right side of the story. Well, in October, before this whole thing blew up, before my Patreon blew up and everything else, I get an email from a guy named Chase J. Jones. It's the infamous Chase J. Jones, probably the most interesting aspect of the story, an unsolved mystery. I get an email from him. In his like headline, it says he's a journalism major at Howard. It doesn't say Howard University, but I'm imagining it's supposed to be this a black guy. He writes an article, like a press release to me, and he sends it to other people saying Clayton Echard has an N-word problem. So it's kind of implied right away, oh boy, here we go. This is not going to look good for Clayton. It's him rapping to the N-word or whatever. Well, no, it's him dancing to a TikTok song that was an explicit TikTok song that had the N-word. I'm not here to give people permission to do what they want to do, but every single person of color I've talked to said, this is not a problem. Every single person said, this is ridiculous. So how odd that October 15th or whatever, I get this email and you go, well, how do we know that Chase J. Jones is trying to cancel Clayton Echard? Well, the final paragraph of this email, this press release was, this is why we should cancel Clayton Echard. So they use this to try to inflict mass harm on Clayton. A few days later, Chase J. Jones joins my Patreon, which joining the Patreon is not a big deal. But the interesting thing is I get an email when someone joins and it says Chase J. Jones, at gmail.com or whatever, join your Patreon as a $5 member. Well, I expose that and I start looking into Chase J. Jones. Now, right away, I knew this was suspicious, obviously, because of if you are someone looking for like maybe racial justice, there might be 1,000 or even 100,000 more popular TikTokers or Instagrammers than Clayton Echard. He's a guy with 250,000 followers. He's not that big. Charlie D'Amelio, there's so many bigger fish to fry if that's what you wanted to do. How suspect that Chase J. Jones wants to cancel Clayton Echard the week that a smear campaign is already existing about him. I tell Chase J. Jones, look, let's get on a FaceTime so I can verify you, so I can report on this story. I don't need to expose you. In fact, at the time, he could have been anonymous. I would have covered the story in one way or another. I would have thought it was very sketchy, but I would have covered the story. And he said, well, I wrote this article with someone else. Cool. I don't care. Just let's get on the line. Let's do it. 5 seconds. Here's my ID. Simple stuff just to make sure I'm doing the right work. And just kind of goes away. Well, I contact Patreon and I go, all right, I've got someone impersonating somebody here and I need to know who they are. And since they paid $5, I just need you to give me their billing information. And they basically said, well, we can't do that. We can't just give out the billing info unless you have like a subpoena. I was like, all right, thank you for nothing. Well, talk to my lawyer who my audience raised money for. And I was like, do I want to open up a case just to do this? He was like, well, it costs you a whole bunch of money. So not really. But he said, if you do get sued, once the case is open, you can then get a subpoena. So I was like, okay. Sure enough, a week later, I get sued for harassment. She says it wasn't sued. Injunction against harassment. Either way, cost me a lot of money. So we subpoena Chase J. Jones. They come back to us. No, we subpoena Patreon. And Patreon says J. Jones doesn't exist. I go, what do you mean? They signed up. I have an email that the email exists. It says I've showed it a million times. And sure enough, I go through my list of people and they changed their name to somebody else. Now you would think, Dave, you could easily cross-reference who it was. My Patreon grew by a lot of people and there's a lot of anonymous people on there. And I would have to get every single person's identity. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. It would be harmful for my business to try to do that because people would just drop off and be like, no, people are very sketchy just because they don't want their identity known. because of this crazy litigious way. So I've tried to cross-examine who Chase J. Jones turned into, but we can't find it. So we subpoena Chase J. Jones. They file a motion to quash the subpoena, which basically means we don't want to be a part of this. They mess the motion up, and my lawyer has to tell them, no, you filed it wrong. It got rejected. You have to do this. And my lawyer is like, why don't you just get on FaceTime with me and prove that you're not Jane Doe? If you can just prove that you're anybody but her, literally show up as anybody but her, and we're done with this. And he doesn't do it. So we have to get an address for Chase J. Jones. It comes back to Seattle. It was a virtual P.O. box, which anybody on earth can buy a virtual P.O. box anywhere that they have them. And, so that was a dud. The VPN shoots off to Paris. So that's sketchy. And all the metadata of Chase J. Joe's domain, some of which comes back to Tempe, Arizona, which is the literal same market that Jane Doe lives in. As far as we know, Chase J. Jones has disappeared and is most likely, in my opinion, Jane Doe. And it was her attempt to use a black man to cancel Clayton. And that's kind of based on the evidence that I have.
Absolutely insane. It shows that there are absolutely no boundaries that she is not willing to cross in order to get her way.
Yeah. So she's got her fingers crossed. She's going to get $140 million out of me. She's compared Clayton to Donald Trump, and her lawyer has actually included hypotheticals that of what if Clayton raped these women, X, Y, and Z, real crazy hypotheticals the lawyer has put into the court documents that are just really aggressive. He's, I hate to bring him into it, but he's kind of taken the bait of wanting to be the star of this show. She has filed, like I said, bar complaints against multiple past lawyers, and I'm shocked that he's still there. But my belief is like a hockey team has a goon. A goon on a hockey team is a player that's really just put on the ice to fight. They're like an enforcer. That's their job. Their job is they barely can skate. Their job is to beat people up, and it keeps both sides honest. My belief is that her family might have hired him just to shake us all up and to maybe make this thing so aggressive that Clayton doesn't want to sue her for defamation, because he does have a case. He has a defamation case. So if she ended up suing me for defamation, it would cost a lot of money, but I think we would raise it pretty quickly because I think people see how ridiculous this is. But if she sued me for defamation, we would walk in there with evidence that she's been lucky hasn't really made its way through this court system. She's even in benefiting from this very friendly family court system, she wouldn't have that luxury in a defamation case. She is a podcaster. She has a podcast. She doesn't really release episodes anymore. She's had some big guests on. By the way, last fun story. So Mike Maricini, 2016 guy, he never has done radio before, was asked to do a radio show with Jane Doe at her father's radio station. And he's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So she gets her father's agent named David Katz, very common agent name, negotiate a deal where he would get paid $250,000 a year to do radio. Only thing is, there is no way in hell that was David Katz. He never wanted to get on the phone with Mike Maricini, and Mike Maricini believes that was her faking an agent so that she could have some sort of so they released some test episodes together. Maybe he'll see that I'm a cool guy. I mean, there are so many stories I can pull out of my pocket left and right that I wish I was an expert on something that was bringing good things to this life. But right now I'm an expert on all of the absurdities here.
Yeah, this is all very Gone Girl, to be honest.
Yeah.
In the most terrifying way.
And it's such a small, at least Gone Girl had eyeballs because it was a murder trial. This is if this wasn't Clayton Echard, if this wasn't somebody who got a little bit of media attention, that got it into the hands of somebody like me, it would have just been enough. She could have done this 15 more times to non-celebrity, to non-clout, just normal sales bros. She could have done this to every sales bro. She could have toured across the country doing this.
Yeah, they would have been railroaded over, especially if they didn't have, money like she does, thanks to her family.
Now, look, most people don't fake when they're pregnant, right? And I always said this, like if men were the ones who got pregnant, there would be a small percentage of men who would fake too, of course. Like it's not a gender thing so much as like you play the hand you're dealt. But the general con is women who do this, New York, high-end nightclub, they'll find like a married man, bang them, and then 3 days later say, I need money for an abortion. And then the guy says, well, here's $5,000 because I don't want my wife to find out. Like that's a general scam. And it kind of ends there. But I've heard that story a million times. And it's like, yeah, you got to be a bad person to do that. That's a whole different issue. But like in this case, it's like, some people have victim shamed Clayton. Well, you shouldn't have done that. But it's like, what did he really do? Like, sure, he hooked up with someone when he was their real estate agent. So anyway, this is probably the last one. I think this is probably the last story here. But so she's set to be deposed on March 1st. She really doesn't want to be deposed. As we find out, she ends up admitting to things in the deposition. She dodges the first deposition, saying like she was trying to get an emergency injunction to like dismiss this case. Judge denies it and says, you got to show up. So she shows up to the deposition. But a day or 2 days before, no, maybe like 3 days before the deposition, she emails Greg Woodnick, Clayton's attorney, saying, Clayton was my real estate agent. He was supposed to put in these offers that he didn't. Therefore, I am out $1.4 million in investment. I am suing Clayton Echard for $1.4 million. The only way I don't sue him is if he drops this case. And Woodnick goes, this is such extortion. Like how? And she goes, it's not extortion. I'm not asking for money. It's like, no, you're trying to extort you're holding something over somebody's head so that they do something else. And since then, she hasn't sued him for extortion or sued him for the $1.4 million. Now, was he her real estate agent? Yes. He had to block her and like send her to someone else. And she claims he wasn't answering her as he was obligated to do because he was her agent. He claims I was giving her to somebody else. He was turning down what was supposed to be a $200,000 commission. The question is, did she ever even have the money to do this? And that's what people don't know. People don't know. Is it an Anna Delvey thing where she really pretends like she's got all this money, but really doesn't? Again, not really sure.
So, where do things stand today with her case against you and Clayton?
So, the night before her injunction against harassment order on me, which at that point I had moved to Tennessee, moved my family here. I was in LA for 10 years, but so the trial was supposed to be in LA Superior Court. I bought refundable tickets knowing her game. The night before, she wants me to sign a stipulation that she will drop the charges against me if I stipulate, and I have a copy of it, if I stipulate that I will never tell people to harm her, that I will never encourage violence, which by the way, encouraging violence is illegal. So that's like stipulating you won't kill somebody. Yeah, I can stipulate that. So I was like, of course. Now people were saying, oh my gosh, Dave, you're playing into her hand. Well, what's my option? Not stipulating that. And then she drops the case and says, he couldn't even say, whatever. So I sign it, waiting to see what her next play was. That night, 5 hours later, that night, she gets a death threat from somebody online. Somebody, I don't know who, on Facebook. And that death threat included a lady who goes by the same name as her mom and that person's address. So not even her mom's address, just a random lady. And rather than take the threat down, she posts it on her Facebook and says, see this guy, look what's happening, blah, blah, blah. So it's all lab grown victimhood to me. My audience, I'm not responsible for anybody, but nobody, like people are really knowing, hey, if we mess with her, it's a bad look on you. Everyone's keeping it by the books. It's why the movement's called Justice for Clayton, because it's more about rising up his truth than Mike and Matt and Greg's than it is about, owning her. Like that'll happen as the truth comes out. But June 10th. So she dropped that against me, still cost me $10,000 or whatever, dropped that against me. And then now I'm just living in this weird purgatory where she's allowed to threaten to sue me. And if she does, it'll open up a national story and I'll raise hell and a lot of money and I'll win. Even if she's got $1 million left over from her dad's inheritance or whatever, because he's no longer making money. He's receiving a lot of therapy for, being very sick. Apparently, a lot of people have been looking in at their loans and they are not as They're not doing as well as she claimed they were, if that's true. But even if, say, she had $1 million in her bank account right now, you know how quickly that's going to go away. She's going to lose the Clayton case, in my opinion. That's going to cost her 150 grand. You know, she's going to have to pay for his bills plus whatever she paid her own lawyer, because there's a hell of a lot of emotions that went into this. Then, so what? She's going to sue me, and I'm going to countersue her. If she's going to sue me for defamation, it's like she's done more to harm my name than I've done to harm hers. In defamation, you got to prove someone's lying. And just about everything I've shown has been the truth, which is that this is all made up. As much as I don't want that to happen, in the end, it'll strengthen my audience. It'll be a weird chapter of my life, and it's going to be a hell of a lot to fight it. But we have the people by our sides. I'm kind of just resigned to that point. Like, just do it or don't already. And the same thing with Megan Fox, a journalist who's covered this, and the same thing with Clayton. If she does do this, she's going to bundle all these lawsuits together. The only thing that's going to stop her is, does her family say, all right, enough wasting this gender? I mean, imagine if a family had a couple $1 million. I mean, I don't expect to get an inheritance from most families don't really have inheritances, but she's never really worked a day job in her life. Her dad, I think she was getting I think she said in a deposition she was getting $250,000 a year or something like that. She buys and sells horses. Like, she's got like her own company or whatever. Like, she does horses in her backyard. But it's not like she built this wealth herself. It's very entitled, if you ask me. And to think that she could possibly squander it all with these issues is like, yikes. Where is the family stopping this? But maybe they hire this attorney to just be a thug to make it so that no one wants to sue her. I don't know if Clayton would sue her. He might be done with it. But to be quite honest, any job he doesn't get for the next 20 years, in the back of his head, he's going to wonder if it's because they Googled his name and stumbled upon the wrong article.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's resource intensive, but he can prove that she's lied about him and she's caused a loss of income. I mean, in my opinion, he has a defamation suit.
And we'd be happy to promote it. Yeah, we'd be happy to promote it.
I imagine he's tired, though.
Yeah. But, you know, if he can find an attorney that, and maybe the documentary will provide, you know, enough exposure where someone wants to take it on. Who knows? I know attorneys don't generally work on contingency for that type of thing, but with the evidence that's so rich there, and again, has been like mined and resourced by like hundreds and thousands of people, there are full timelines. People can go to justiceforclayton.com. There's a Wikipedia page, the Twitter's Clayton's Justice, my channel. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there compiling all this evidence. You know, I've learned a lot. I would rather this have never existed, but if presented with this story again, I think I would have covered it probably the same way.
Somebody has to do it, even though it's hard. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to talk about it.
Yeah, there's probably about a dozen channels in the Bachelor world that are bigger than mine. And it just really affected me that the Bachelor alumni didn't come together to help Clayton. Clayton comes from the sports world where you get each other's back. And I mean, most worlds you get each other's back. But there's something about Bachelor, it attracts probably a narcissistic personality type. And nobody has really stuck by his side. Nobody has really, I mean, a few alumni have, but for the most part, it's the fan base that have stuck by him, that have raised money for him. There's been a few, like Caitlin Bristow. She was a Bachelorette, won Dancing with the Stars. She's fantastic. She's had me on her podcast multiple times to share the story. Nick Viall, he's probably the biggest Bachelor podcaster. He shared Clayton's story, but only after he could get Clayton on to talk about it. He was very careful not to insert any risk on his end, which again, I just think is so spineless. I would have thought everybody would have come together. I mean, I just imagine if this happened to someone on the Cincinnati Bengals, you would think everybody would be in solidarity with this guy if they knew it was wrong. Clayton had called Nick. Nick knew what was happening was wrong, and he still like sat on his hands because he didn't want to be sued. And I was like, gosh, I just couldn't. I was truly surprised. And then there's some negative, personality types that are like, Dave, you asked for all of this. You inserted yourself in other people's business. And I was like, yeah, but this is all bystander syndrome. Like, everyone expected someone else to put an end to this, and it just wasn't going to happen. So because other people didn't cover it, she came after me, and I'm just like the centerpiece for her obsession right now, and her lawyer's obsession. But now there's more people covering it. She hasn't threatened to sue any of the lawyers covering it. She just kind of like tries to pick off Liz Neptune. She sent a cease and desist to another disabled commentator who was covering it. It's like, I mean, I don't know. It just has to end.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say I've never gotten a cease and desist, but unfortunately, covering dynamic true crime cases, I've gotten a few of them, and they're essentially worthless unless there's something to back it up. Not that it's any fun to get them, but
You're right. It's worthless once you learn, but it stings. It's, you know what it does for me is all the threats, it turns off the rational side of your brain that knows you're telling the truth, and it turns on that fear aspect. That's why I can understand why Clayton was gaslighted, and I can understand how some of these guys were manipulated, because they were so afraid of their character being flushed down the toilet that they lost control of, hey, I didn't even have sex with her, you know? So it's, I can totally see how this sort of abuse can happen.
yeah. So is she still in the process of suing Clayton? I know yours is still
The Clayton
ongoing, kind of up in
lawsuit,
the air.
the Clayton lawsuit is in the stage where they're going to court on June 10th, primarily to see who pays the bill. So they're going for legal fees. That, even though she, because she said I'm no longer pregnant, she filed a motion to dismiss the case. His motion was, no, I'm proving non-paternity. So she thought maybe this will all go away as soon as, hey, no longer pregnant, so it just goes away, right? And he's like, no, 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 no. So he's arguing for attorney's fees, and that's all it comes down to. But by arguing for attorney's fees, which again, the judge had to approve, and the judge had to have a curiosity here to be like, yeah, let's look into this. By arguing for attorney's fees, they basically can let the case play out, and the judge is going to say like, who's right and wrong. And they're presenting completely different sides of the argument. Her side is, well, if there was ever a point I believed I was pregnant, perfectly fine. Now, she filed the paternity case well after she claims to have miscarried. So there's that whole aspect of it. And he's claiming, no, like you never, with all of the abundance of wealth you have, her father receives world-class treatment for his Parkinson's. With all of this, she would only go to random Planned Parenthoods across the country. She would only go to random Banner Health places that just test your blood. Where's the ultrasound? And at the time, I'm going through my own pregnancy. You get an ultrasound early on, every 2 weeks, every month. If you're pregnant with twins, you're considered high risk. You definitely get one every 2 weeks. So where were those? Why were they all fake? Why were the HCG tests fake? Why were why'd you pretend to have cancer?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm glad that the judge is at least looking into her medical records back from 2018, so that'll at least cover
So she
Clayton's
gave,
and then somebody else's.
yeah. So this is why it was so good. We got Clayton the lawyers, because he tried to do this ex parte and it just wasn't going well. And then we got the lawyers, and they were able to cross-examine her at the injunction against harassment hearing, which he won. The judge there said, the judge Gil Ketkis said, yeah, no, she sent him between 500 messages, different accounts, very baby rain dairy, very. And she's saying, but I was trying to communicate with him because I was pregnant. And and the judge is like, cut the shit. She offered to show the belly to him. Judge goes, no. It's all on video. You can, the YouTube channel Schnitzel Ninja. They have all these court cases. But he cross-examines her in the injunction against harassment and says, what's your due date? February 14th. Who are you seeing? Do you have a doctor? Well, I'm seeing McCool, and she gives two different names for doctors. So this whole paper trail comes out. So when it's time to get the HIPAA release, they go to all of these places. None of them have receipts. And then her attorney says this. So funny. Her attorney says she sought medical care. She didn't receive it. She claimed she was only seeking medical care. She never claimed she actually received medical care, because the only record they have is that she called a doctor, set an appointment, and then canceled the appointment. So the idea being is that she would probably set the appointment, screen grab it, send it to look, I got an appointment, and then just never follow through. So she claims she never followed through because of fears and COVID and all this stuff. Her lawyer claims she only sought medical care, but the lawyer didn't know what we all know, which is that in that injunction against harassment hearing, she claims she saw that doctor last week, Dr. McCool. So these doctors exist. She never saw them. And it's just more cases of her really just throwing out so many random things. Now, the sad part is, the frustrating part is, the case was only supposed to be 45 minutes long. We've been live for probably twice that long. You can't get through all of it. They asked for the case to be extended for 2 hours, and the judge granted that. I wish they had a full day. I wish they had a week. I mean, the shorter this case is, the better chance she has, because there's so much wild stuff out there that won't be allowed in. They filed motions to make sure none of the witnesses would be able to show up. That was all struck down this week by the judge. So Mike, Matt, Greg, and Clayton will all be there. They've got the expert testimony, which her side tried to shoot down, which was the forensic computer expert, the former Air Force veteran, his expert 2,400 page document, which shows all the metadata that she faked cancer and faked an abortion. So all of that will be in court. They just have to present it as quick as possible.
I hope it goes well. And I don't know.
I think it will.
I think so too. I think at this point it's so public and there's so many victims and she's made up so many lies that it's only a matter of time. And it seems like it's coming soon that everybody's going to be privy.
The judge is granting all of Clayton's motions while she's saying, well, this shows that it's unfair. It just goes to show the judge is like letting as much truth come in, and they might file an appeal, which you probably know more about this than I do, but I think they'll have to put down a large part of the settlement if they do appeal. And it's like, at what point is this going to become real for her? Is she going to really want to appeal and spend that much more money and then, still lose? It's like, at what point is she just going to take the loss? She did try to change her name. We've reported on it, and then she said she can no longer change her name because people found out what it was going to be. Not me, but people on the internet found it out. So she's tried to sort of dodge it, but it's like, she claims she's not a public figure, even though she has a public podcast, even though she's released songs. And we didn't even get into the horse jumping. She was jumping horses when you shouldn't do when you're pregnant. So it's just like, they got her all over the place.
Yeah, I don't see this going on much longer. And if it does, I'll be amazed.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But yeah, I'll be there live June 10th. I'm going to be reporting from my van. I'm going to be handing out scones and coffee. People can make signs, support these men. Just give them I'm going to give them all a chance to interview afterwards. And I don't have to be there. I could report from home, but I feel like it's important to just be there and give people the chance to speak once the judge comes down. I mean, we haven't heard. I just hope the judge gives some sort of commentary that continues to protect us, like that the judge sees that this is a complete misuse of, that the judge agrees with all of this. But we'll have to see. I mean, she's certainly fair. This judge has not been playing around with all of the malarkey. She's fair, and she just wants, she's gonna have to just sift through it all, I guess.
Well, I'm wishing you all good luck, because this is one of the craziest things I've ever heard of, and it's been going on for so long. So,
well, thanks so much.
Wishing you and all of the victims best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share their story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming on. Dave, where can people find you and your podcast?
My podcast is called The Rush Hour with Dave Neal, and I do it twice a day. I do a 20-minute morning and a 20-minute afternoon episode. So that's all entertainment news, and I give all the breaking news updates. And then on YouTube, it's just my name, Dave Neal, and on Instagram, DNeals. I know there isn't much funny about this topic, but I am a stand-up comedian. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'll let you know when I have shows in your city.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave, for coming on, and thank you for listening.
Thanks.